Hello, my name is Tapfuma, and I'm the founder of AfriFursa, where we host interviews with African diasporans who are doing amazing things with Africa from where they're based in the diaspora. So thanks for taking time to check us out. Today I'm here with one such diasporan, Michael Manarikiza, who's a co-founder and COO of Plendify. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Tapfuma. It's a pleasure and great to be with you today on this hopefully bright and happy Saturday for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's especially bright and happy for you because I don't know if you want to disclose to the viewers, but Michael's in a very warm and tropical location right now.
I'm in Ghana, and it's definitely part of the diaspora. So definitely,
Yeah.
I'm not far from home in a lot of ways, and it feels great. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Good. Well, Michael, for our viewers who might not have heard much about Plendify before, just tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, thank you. So Plendify was founded 3 years ago with myself and two other co-founders, and our insight was that capital needs to flow to entrepreneurs on the continent, and technology could enable that. So we began a journey in building a fintech platform to find a better way for capital to flow to entrepreneurs. And on that journey, we also had another insight that a lot of businesses needed a trusted marketplace. So last year, we also started building a product that we launched this year, which is a marketplace that connects suppliers and buyers in Ghana and eventually across the continent so that they can do business online. And of course, it's very relevant during COVID-19 time.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's fantastic, and it's just so interesting, Michael, because your background represents such an interesting mix of cultures and nationalities. So, from our previous conversations, you're Rwandan, you live in Canada, and you do business in Ghana, as you just said. So, can you tell us a bit about what each of these kind of nations and your experience in them, what they mean to you?
Yeah, thank you. I was born in Burundi and lived in Rwanda for the better part of my life, but also moved to Canada in 1998. So I do have a fair bit of my history in Canada, and they're
Mm,
both welcoming homes. Of course, Rwanda has a lot of resiliency in its history in terms of what it's been through. So I carried that with me
sure.
between Canada and Rwanda. And of course, I'm in touch with family and friends back home. And I think Canada has been a great environment to develop skills, to learn, and to also learn about other cultures and discover, obviously, what we all have in common, right,
Mm,
as people. And of course, my co-founder and CEO of Plendify, Bosaki, is from Ghana. So I'm aware that Ghana is one of those countries that I've known even before I met him that has always been at the forefront of innovation, of welcoming the
mm,
diaspora. So it just
yeah.
made sense that it's a great place to do business for myself, for anyone who's looking to find an entry point. But I would say Rwanda is welcoming as well. But really, the journey began in doing business in Ghana that we wanted to focus on an entry point in West Africa. And as we looked at around the markets, I think we decided to focus and hone in on Ghana.
Okay, I see. Fantastic. Well, I lived in Ghana for some time, actually, for about a year, and I
Yeah, you're
completely,
telling me.
yeah, completely attest to that. It was one of the best experiences that I had while living on the continent. And I was able to see that for myself, the level of innovation and creativity.
Yeah,
Just
and
and
great
just
people. Yeah.
just great people. Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so that's great. So you have a team member who is actually in Ghana, well, your CEO, and other staff as well. So can you tell us why you find it necessary to actually have a presence in the country you operate in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think sometimes when you're away from home for a long time, you obviously have some have to kind of appreciate the culture of work and also the culture of doing business. So when we started building the platform, which was initially the fintech platform, we had to travel multiple times to get a sense of the data that was available, to understand the processes that were in place, and also to understand how people perceived doing banking and also fintech. And as we know, of course, Africa has been at the forefront of mobile money innovation, which is something that's spread around the world, but its genesis is on the continent. So when we were doing our homework, we said we really need to go on the ground, but at the same time, we stayed in touch with others over WhatsApp, over email, to really get more information. I think the importance of having an office, or at least a representative or even a team on the ground, is that you will encounter nuances that you can't pick up from a distance, and you will also have to adapt to your strategy on the ground, right? So of course, COVID has caused everyone to shift online, which in a way probably makes it easier, but to connect with different, I would call them micro communities, you really need to be on the ground to understand their nuances and how they operate so that you could do business with them.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, that's a great approach. So, but let me ask you, let me backtrack a little bit. So you're based in Canada, and you've spent a lot of your life here, as you said. What really inspired you? I know you have a connection, with the continent, but I believe you come from the financial services. So what really made you think that it makes sense to do business with the continent?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is hearing from family. I mean, I do have family that still does business on the continent, but also, I'm an avid reader, and I do follow things even though I'm not there. So I've been reading a lot about how our politics have been changing, how the continent is obviously growing. I mean, the fastest growing economies in the world are more than 50% of them are on the continent.
Yes.
And the fastest growing adoption of mobile telephones is on the continent. So there's a lot of data points that show you that when we put our eyes to China and we look at India and we say, okay, well, you should go do business in China or India because that's where the growth is. I think a lot of people miss the opportunities and the great gems that are happening on the continent. So right now there is an explosion of obviously innovations and startups and young people who unfortunately can't find jobs, so they have to create their own jobs. So sitting back, looking at the data, knowing the trajectory of a lot of the economies that are growing and looking to do more trade, naturally led me to looking inwards and saying that, is this the time? And I felt it was the right time to start working on some projects and ideas that I had with my team.
Awesome. That's amazing. So you had mentioned that it's really important to connect with these micro communities. So could you tell us a bit more about how you actually went about getting traction? Once you discovered these micro communities, how did you get traction for your products and services?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a lot of it comes from having an open mind around collaboration and then understanding where your customers are, right? At the end of the day, we do have a product that we need to sell to customers. So we did our homework of the stakeholders that would kind of help us get the traction. And we started scheduling meetings either virtually or in person. And that sort of led one thing to another to give us the information that we needed so that we can move forward. One of the things about fintech is that you need to learn about licensing. You need to learn about the regulatory environment. You need to understand if there's a bureau system or how people transact or what are the biggest players in the ecosystem. Of course, our product is bank focused, so we had to make inroads in meeting either bank executives or meeting financial service providers that could connect us with the right people. Some of that had to be done on the ground. Of course, a lot of follow-ups. I think if one lesson from this experience is don't give up on your first try or on your 10th try. It does require some resiliency and
great advice. Great advice.
People Thank you. And people tend to react to that, right? If you give up too early, they'll obviously dismiss you. So I think our tenacity in giving sharing our message across that this is the way forward, and there could be a lot of win-win, right? I think the conversation should always be about, how do you collaborate and win together versus how do you maybe maximize your profit, right? So that's sort of what kind of led us to have some traction. And we always had to kind of understand their point of view as well. I mean, when you come from a world, when you come with a lot of different gadgets and tech tools, sometimes you have to slow things down and kind of focus on, what can make an impact. Out of 10 things that you could do, maybe you select one thing and then you focus on that before the next one, because it might be overwhelming for your partner, your business partners, to just sort of absorb all that information. So you need to massage your message and make it very, very crisp so that it doesn't sound like you're trying to bombard them with all these things, that you want to collaborate and you want to move forward one step at a time.
So you've mentioned, the whole need to be resilient, and I really attest to that as an entrepreneur myself. Are there any other key challenges that you face that you could highlight for us?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. There are a few. The first one being having to spend money to try to engage your business partners or your stakeholders, and sort of having false starts or maybe meetings that don't happen because of timing. So I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we want to move really fast. We want to break things, and you kind of have to manage your expectations around that, because you might unfortunately be surprised that things might take a bit longer than you expected. So that was a major challenge on the continent. Also, you're spending money, right? So you have to spend more money than you anticipated. Kind of maybe traveling, if that's the case, if you have to. So that's one of the major challenges. And the other one is getting everything together, really gathering all the data, putting your plan together, gathering your paperwork, getting organized on that also might take a bit more time. What you might think might take a week could take a month. So you have to manage your expectations.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's great. And you've mentioned some of the opportunities already, like some of the fastest growing economies of the world. And I know Ghana, I think, was number 1 or 2 for a few years in terms of how fast it's growing GDP terms. So, in the adoption of cell phones, are there any other key opportunities that you see, maybe specifically in Ghana?
Yeah, I have a long list. Where do I start? I think the food sector, I know that it's been talked about to death, but the food sector is still a massive opportunity. Right now, food security on the continent is a big concern. So how do we avoid food going bad and sort of getting it faster to the cities? Transportation, logistics, another major category that is sometimes overlooked because it probably has to deal with trucks, but it's a huge opportunity. Healthcare, delivering healthcare. I mean, we're talking about young populations that are exploding on the continent. So healthcare innovation, healthcare solutions. COVID is one of many viruses, but there's a lot of young kids being born every day. So those are some of the opportunities I can see in front of us that are going to be billion-dollar opportunities for those that really stake their hat on the, go there and kind of pursue them with their hearts.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of those sectors you mentioned really, they really encompass almost anyone can get involved, from one level or another, even if you're not a technical expert. But it's like the work that you're doing, creating a platform, touches all of these areas. So that's fantastic. That's great. So how do you manage the issue of digital infrastructure? So like in Ghana, for instance, how widespread are their cellular networks, and what kind of digital infrastructure are they working with? And for your platform, where you're connecting buyers and sellers and so on, how does that level of infrastructure impact what you offer to the market?
Yeah, that's a very good question. This is maybe another challenge that I probably overlooked in one of your previous questions. But I think in order to really understand how to do business on content, you do need to understand the digital infrastructure for what you deliver if it's required. As
Mm,
you know, with mobile money or another platform called USSD, it is an offline platform that is as good, if not more more resilient than Google Play Store or Apple Play Store. It's like a short
mm,
code, *123#, and people can find a
right.
menu of
Yes.
a service that is being provided. It's very
Mm,
popular in Ghana and in other countries. For us, what we've had to do is really understand who our audience is and also build for them. So, of course, our platform is very simple to use. Um, we've also kind of bridged the gap of addressing the address system. So we don't use Google Maps. We actually use an innovation in Ghana, which is called Ghana Post GPS, which is a coordinate that gives you an address, a code address. And
yes.
essentially,
Yes.
it's more accurate than Google Map or WhatsApp.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
most
think,
of our app works often. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say we've obviously managed our app to work on 2G and 3G and make sure that it's available offline when you don't have a connectivity. So there's some parts of the platform that you can use
Mm,
offline when you're not on.
yeah.
The biggest thing is really kind of managing those different spectrums, because as much as Ghana is much more advanced, they're on 4G, they have fiber optic in the city. Outside of the city, the connectivity could be spotty depending on where you are. So you have to build for that
Mm,
potential lag in connectivity.
got it. Got it. Okay. So, you know, people who are watching this might be based in Canada or somewhere else in the diaspora and, might be inspired by what you do. So, if you were to give advice to any, Canadian or diasporan startup that is looking to build a global cross-border functionality in whatever they're offering, what would your key piece of advice to them be?
I think the key piece would be to do your homework, um, but follow your heart, because really entrepreneurship isn't always about the money. Because if it was,
Yeah.
people wouldn't really do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it's quite hard, and some people they if they don't have a mission statement. Define your mission, right? What is the mission, and have a medium term outlook. I think there's an impatience on trying to see results very quickly, and that
Mm,
could make you miss the $1 billion opportunity that we just discussed. If you think about what happened in India for a long time, people were trying to do different things, and slowly and surely, the adoption of mobile technology, or say 4G mobile phones, was happening, but it wasn't ramping up. Then all of a sudden, I think in the mid 2000s, it ramped up, and pretty much now, anything you launch has huge adoption if it's got a good product market fit. So I think you have to take a medium-term outlook. The continent has recently signed the AFCTA, where barriers of trade are going to drop, and it's the biggest agreement since the world. I think it was the world. Was it that
World
the
Trade Order.
European zone? There's another
Yeah.
one. Sorry,
Yeah. The WTO. Since the WTO, it's
it
the
was
biggest trade
since the
bloc.
WTO.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we don't even know what kind of opportunities are going to come out of it, but I can tell you, I can guarantee you there's going to be plenty, and
Mm,
there's enough for everyone. And I think what we like to think of is sometimes people focus too much on the few businesses that are successful on the continent, and they miss the market size and the fact that there could be 100, if not 1,000, of the same kind of businesses being successful. So it's great that
yeah.
we have a few success stories, but let's multiply them. So just take a medium term outlook on things.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's excellent advice. That's really excellent advice. Um, yeah. So okay. Well, one final question here. So you've taken a trip abroad. You're in Guyana. You're loving the weather out there and the environment, and you've escaped Canada's winter, right? So my question to you is, if you could choose any city in Africa, and it has to be outside of Ghana, if you could choose any city in Africa where you would live, play, and work after you're done your time there, what would it be?
After I'm
So
done
you,
my time there, wow. It's hard to say be done my time there, but any city.
mm.
Hmm. That's a very good question. I have to
So you're
think about
working
it. I mean,
remotely.
obviously,
You don't have to worry about, about access. Like, that's all taken care of, right?
yeah.
So what would your choice be?
Well, Kigali comes top of mind.
Okay.
Um, I think
The
it's a
Kigali
very
because
good
it's home,
question.
I guess, right? Or well, I mean,
Well, there's that, and then
it's partially.
it's yeah, it's close to a lot of beautiful. I mean, it's close to Tanzania, it's close to Kenya, it's close to. There's a lot of East Africa countries in East Africa that can hop from that city, but it's also
Okay.
quite beautiful in terms of the scenery and
Mm.
all those things. And of course, I can speak about it because I know it's from it's home, right? So I can easily speak about it.
Yeah.
As for other cities, I know there's a few cities in Kenya. Mombasa comes to mind. Um, Nairobi, of course, which is is well known already. So I think those. I don't want to. I'm giving home court advantage here, but there's a few cities in East Africa that I would
Yeah.
like.
No, that's fair. It's just I wanted the top of mind, sort of response. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Kigali. Good. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule across time zones, and so on to have this interview. I know you've got a team in Ghana which you're working very closely with, so I know you're pretty engaged there. So really appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Tafuma, and I think you're doing a great job sharing these kind of stories. It's important to have operators and business leaders share what's happening day to day, and of course, obviously, give some
Yeah.
feedback on those that are maybe at the beginning of their journey.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. It's an absolute pleasure. These are the stories that are important for us to share. So I appreciate that. And to our viewers, thank you for checking this video out. Do hit like and drop a comment below. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And also check out the video description below for how to follow Michael, find out more about Plendify. All right. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.